follow the mallet along that crease. Okay? Everybody see this? So it's not directly like across your fingers, it's kind of at an angle. Now what you're going to do, close those fingers. And you want to rest this mallet against your middle finger. Now, if you look at mine, I'm going to see if you can. We also kind of see this red bump. Hope you can. It's close to the knuckle. Notice that it's not down by your palm. It's kind of resting up at the knuckle. So when you are holding this mallet, it's resting up close towards the knuckle. Okay? Now this mallet, this outside mallet, once you have it, you want it to be kind of snug. And you want about this much hanging out. There are some people that believe in holding more out. Mark Ford, I know, holds his mallets like this. There's definitely a plus to this because it's a little more stable. However, it makes a very weird distance in your hand. So I think that's actually a little harder to learn. I'd rather sacrifice the little bit of stability you get to get equal distance between the mallets like this rather than them looking like this. So I'd rather see this personally. So this mallet does not move. Okay, this is your rock. This stays put. You don't want this thing sliding around. Now, guys, also understand, like if you're in the battery right now and I'm teaching you this, this is totally applicable to concert playing. I do not change my technique when I play on a concert marimba. I simply change my touch. Okay? And I'll talk more about that, but this, I don't change the way I hold the mallets at all. So this mallet doesn't move. We all cool on that? Okay. Other mallet. Spock hands. Okay. Now let's all look and see a crease in our hand. That kind of, if you were to close your hand, this crease kind of takes you through the middle of your hand. Find that crease. I like to call it, I think somebody told me once that it's the lifeline. I have no idea. But that crease, everybody kind of see, like, so I have a little red dot or kind of a dot that runs through that crease. Now, you'll have schools of thought that will tell you the center of your hand. If you find this crease, that's actually the best natural point for you to hold your mallet in the center of your hand. It's not always the center of your hand personally, but when you close your hand up, if you try to hold your mallet anywhere else but that crease, you're going to be fighting it to move it around rather than accepting it into that crease and allowing that to grip it even better. Cool? So, whoa. Okay, so we're in our crease. Now everybody, we've got Spock hands, right? I want you to lay your middle finger down, and I just want you to anchor it at the bottom of this mallet. Some people wrap this around the mallet. That's okay. I personally like to anchor it. So I put that middle finger right there and I press it up against there. So at this point, you should only need that to hold on to the mallet. It's very awkward. Don't recommend it for a long time. But that, I call it the anchor for a reason. It actually holds your mallet in place. From there, you're going to rest the mallet on top of your index finger, like this. On the very first knuckle towards the fingernail, like that. Also notice how I say rest. You want to just let the mallet rest on top. And from there, the final step, just set your thumb down. Again, Just set your thumb down. You don't want to squeeze you don't want to press. You just want to set your thumb down. Very relaxed, okay? The tensest part, the most tense part of your hand, guys, the most engaged part of your hand are these 3 fingers back here. These 2 fingers are actually very relaxed. Don't squeeze. And if you play for a long time, you actually kind of, they actually go cold for a while. So I remember I would shake in drum corps or indoor, and I'd like have to warm up my first 2 fingers because you don't hold on, you don't grip, so there's no like blood flow going through them. It's a very weird sensation, but that's when you know you're actually relaxed. So what we call this index finger right here, we call this the perch. The mallet just rests. Just like if you had a bird, you'd have a bird and set it on your perch. Cool. So the mallet rests on your perch. And the best way I can come up with this, the person who taught me this day one, and I've never forgotten it since. Imagine you took it, it's pretty gruesome. If you took a nail and you hammered it through your nail, your thumbnail, through the shaft, through that knuckle. So if you just had a nail that stuck right through there, that's your connection point for this mallet. So it doesn't look like this, where your finger's tucked in. And it also doesn't look like this, where you extend your finger past your thumb. I don't see this as often. I've only seen a couple players that like to do this. Main one is this. I think we've all been a part of that. We don't want that. So you want to imagine like a nail goes right through your thumbnail, through the shaft, through your index finger, knuckle. Okay, so we're here. Go ahead and grab that other mallet, tuck it in. Make sure it's resting up against that knuckle. Now, sometimes we'll see the outside mallet kind of lower. Have we all, maybe in front ensemble land, have we ever seen that comment? Raise your outside mallets up? Maybe. I know I definitely give that comment quite a bit. So if you're having issues like this, it's because your grip is not quite strong enough in the back. If you tighten the grip a little bit, push this mallet against your middle finger, it's usually because that middle finger hurts. And we're starting to get a blister on there. We don't want to squeeze it up against there, so our outside drops. Keep that tight connection, and that mallet comes up instantly. Y'all can see this. That's just me relaxing, tightening up the grip, gets straight up to the plane. Cool? Okay. Are there any questions? I love questions. Please feel free to ask any kind of question because it's weird, and it's a weird over Zoom or Teams as well. So please go ahead and stop me if you ever have a question. Okay. So we're here. We're great. We've got our grip. It's nice and relaxed. So now, this is something that I learned actually in college. We had a Giff Howarth masterclass. He's a judge. He teaches at, does he teach any, Mr. Aya, do you know if he teaches at cadets still? I don't think he does. Giff Howarth?
I don't know. I don't pay attention to cadets. No, I'm just kidding. Spoken like a true captain here.
Yeah, seriously.
The cadets have a bit. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
So, long time, I think he arranger, tech, caption head at cadets. Does a lot of judging. He came and did a master class during my undergrad, and I actually came in. This is also kind of another lesson. You're going to get information from a lot of different people. Don't shut them down instantly. Whatever preconceived anything you feel about this person, always listen to what they have to say, because this I've carried to this day. I never thought I'd say that because it's Giff Howarth. I just don't agree with his approach or from what I had seen. So I think this is great. So he sums it down to 3 motions. There are 3 motions in 4 mallet playing. That's it. Any type of playing that you do with 4 mallets on marimba, on the floor, anywhere is 3 different motions, and that's it. The first motion, the acronym is, so you can remember this, is WTF. Okay? So the first motion is wrist, which is our block chord. Both mallets coming down at the same time. It's not arm. It's not this. It's wrist. Cool? So we have the mallets at a plane. They go down, they strike together, they come back up. It's all wrist. So that's our first stroke type. Second, the T stands for twist. Now everybody, you've heard this before. I know you have. Twist a doorknob towards the inside. Okay, we're talking about the inside mallet. Cool? And go ahead and set the mallets down and literally do this with your hand. A twist. Now, do not do this. Because does anybody open a doorknob like that? You walk up to a door and you're like, and then push the door open? I don't think we all do that. When you walk up to a door, you grab it, you twist it, and you walk in, right? So twist does not mean this. Twist means this. Cool? Great. Go ahead and try that. Twist. Now we'll gain some more independence with this, so you don't do this. Remember, twist like this does not mean this. If you do this, this is what your mallets look like. Right? We just want this. So it's a nice little twist down. Okay. The last one, and the one that's kind of stuck with me, and the reason I think this is great, is F stands for flush. Now everybody flush a toilet. Now you may not flush a toilet like this, but for some reason this always kind of works mentally with kids. I have no idea why. So when we flush, it's not a side-to-side motion, right? You don't go flush a toilet like this, right? No, you have to push the thing down, okay? Which is pushing it forward. Your hand goes forward, and you're pushing this lever down, okay? Now, don't think like this. It's still got a little twist component to it, but it's going forward, okay? So grab this, and think about that. Think about going forward and flushing, that flushing motion. Does that make sense? So very clearly, these independent strokes are not the same motion. A lot of people will just say, you just have to rotate and you got to twist. Just twist your hand up. But it's 2 different motions, okay? The twist for the inside, flush for the outside. Make sense? That is why gaining independence with Stevens is very difficult. The still mallets, okay? Because your brain hasn't quite separated the 2 motions, okay? It's difficult to understand at first, but then once your brain kind of gets around it, you realize there's only one way to strike. Cool? Okay. Are there any questions about that? Okay.
I have a question going back to
Yeah. Yes.
So I have had trouble. I mean, I really don't even know what it's called, but when people use wrist correctly, I always see this, and honestly, I've never read the mom book, cover to the end, right?
Yeah.
So, is there kind of a wrist pop where the wrist actually comes up here? What is that pop that I see? Because some people can just go up and down, but then some people you kind of see a pop, and I just don't know how to describe that, or if that's good, or like what are your thoughts on that?
So that makes me think that the instrument is too low.
Okay.
Either the instrument is too low, or the hands are raised too high.
Mm-hmm. And you see the wrist pop
and
up.
you have to reach down for the keys.
Got it.
Now,
so we don't want to see pop.
You don't really want to see it. There is sometimes that you do see that. But really, when you set over this, hope you can all see this. So we're set over this. This instrument I like to keep low. This is my personal concert keyboard. I personally like to keep things low. It reminds me to not play so high and just kind of relax down at the keyboard. When I was marching, my keyboard was probably here. Okay, I don't know if you all can see that kind of height difference. My keys probably sat around, probably around here. So that when I would bring my wrist up and I'd strike, I was probably striking to like here, which looks like that. And there is a slight, you can see that. If it goes too far, you see that pop. But if it strikes from there, it's not as intense. The pop is still there, because if you're doing this, it's also kind of leaning up with the arm. I've seen that too, where they pop up with the shoulder.
Yeah.
So this kind of, they absorb the hit with their shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just if we isolate the wrist, we shouldn't see too big of a pop. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Any other questions? Great question. Now, understand that not everybody's hands are the same. Some people have ginormous hands. Some people have really tiny hands. I have small hands. I met Lee Howard Stevens. He came to a Mystique show. He went to finals, I think in 2016. First time he's ever been. He's like, yeah, a lot of groups use my grip. Figure I'd come one of these years. And he met Music City Mystique, and he goes, he physically came back to the truck after the show, and he goes, I've sat through a lot of WGI today, and this is like hour 8 for him, watching shows. I was like, I can't do that. Good for you, man. And he came back and he's like, I've seen a lot of grips today, and I just want you to know that I think your group showcases the Stevens technique in the most correct way, the most respectful way. It's like, wow, cool. And I remember shaking hands with the man, and I wanted to know how big his hands were, because he's a small guy. We're about the same height. So I was like, these hands created Stevens. So I was very observant when I shook his hand. I was like, we have the same hands. Total fangirl moment meeting the man. Yeah. So he's got pretty small hands. When you look at the illustrations, his hands, I feel like my hands were really designed for his grip because he's got small hands. So big hands, there are accommodations that have to be kind of made with really big hands. I'm teaching a kid right now who's got hands like this, and it looks like he's just eating mallets, like Hulk smash for dinner. And there are some tweaks that we have to make the grip comfortable in his hands and make sure that he doesn't injure himself. So everybody's hands are different. Always ask questions like, how are things looking? And when I come out and see you guys play, and all this stuff. I'll definitely be picking it out. Big believer in technique, which kind of brings me to my next point. How do I practice technique? Because guys, let's face it, technique is really boring. Who has fun practicing technique? Not one person that I see. Cool. Good for you. Good for you, man. Okay, I don't. I really hate it. I really don't like it. So, one thing that I love to do is I play on the floor and I nix the metronome altogether. I just like music is a great metronome. Most of the time, music of today is very with it in time. So you don't really need a metronome unless you're really working out tempos and you've got a tempo sheet and you're like, okay, I've got to work up to this tempo. But if we're just generically working on technique, there are a couple things. First, you need a mirror. Absolutely need a mirror. Walmart sells it for like $5. Talking one of those like long, cheap mirrors, like the very cheap sides.
Long
like,
rectangle type deal.
Yeah, they like put them in the college dorm section, and it's usually like an island box, and they just throw like 5,000 of them into this box. They're like $5. Yeah, one of those, really cheap. When I'm at a keyboard, I'll actually put it on the music stand. I can see my hands. I don't do it so much nowadays. I'm pretty confident with my technique. I don't work on it as much. Like actually get down nitty gritty and break things down. But when I'm on the floor, I'll put it up against a wall and practice that way. Because I really want to get feedback. I want instant feedback as to how my playing looks. So when we're playing, we want our playing to be nice and straight. Okay, we want a straight line. So what I would do is I draw a line on the mirror. Like in Sharpie, I just draw a straight line with a ruler. And that was like my goal. And we call this the home base. We want to reach home base every time. So if we're playing, we want to make sure that the mallets are rebounding right back up to our home base. Cool? So I draw the line.
Sorry,
Yeah.
can I ask a question about the line and the angle?
Yes.
Are you shooting for 45 degrees, as high as you can go? Like, what's your goal as far as the height?
Yeah, so my goal is really, this changes over time, you guys. So when you start out, your home base is probably going to be like here, which is really like, it's not very high, right? It's because we have to gain flexibility in the wrist. Just like any kind of other activity, like a gymnast, they're not very flexible at first. Eventually, over time, you can really get this wrist like stretched up. But no, I never go for a sort of goal. Everybody's height is very different. So if you're looking at like keyboards, old school, I know Cavaliers tried this one year. Eric was telling me about putting the keyboards all at the same height, like the cadets, the cadet snare line.
Yep.
Because he wanted that kind of clean look. However, you had people like me who are very short,
Right.
people who are very tall. Where do you put it?
Yeah.
And the home bases are naturally kind of different for everybody. The big takeaway, though, is that you have a clean home base. Because if you have a solid home base where you're not overreaching past it or under it, as in go down, not rebound back up to it, so you get the seesaw, no rebound, where you have this. Either of those don't look quote unquote clean. We're going for a clean look. So player to player, we can have a clean home base. That's going to look miles better than any kind of other thing. So your home base is just when you bring the wrists up, it's as far up as you can get right now without straining yourself. So if your home base is like, if you're set and your home base is like there, that's your home base. But you need to be very consistent and play to your home base all the time. So if you're here and you're just like that far away from the keyboard, your home base should stay consistent the whole time.
Well, what I've noticed with a lot of my younger players, they'll have that home base,
Yeah.
and then they lift again, like a
Yes.
double lift, right? So I think, guys, it's just a matter of being real disciplined and being just being real picky about it. I do have an advanced question. You might be getting to this, but just because we're talking about the home base.
Please.
So let's say you have, because this is something I was talking to someone within the last couple of years about. What about when you have, because the Cavaliers are really known for their sound quality with their inner mallets when they have runs, but they still have their 4 mallets in. In that circumstance, where you're just doing a bunch of runs with your 2 and 3 mallet, your inside mallet, I used to think that the mallets are up in their home base, your 1 and 4 mallet are up in the air, but then I started hearing that people started like lowering the 1 and 4 mallet while they are like blasting away with runs in the inner mallet. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I really do strive for home base, and the natural occurrence is that you will break the plane with this. However, if you have this inside rotation coming from home base, and your outsides are staying at a home base, at your home base, if you start to overreach it like this and break the plane, really, we're just kind of adding a little bit of flow to this. It's not robotic. We're kind of adding a natural rebound to get the mallets back up to flow a little bit easier. And you can keep those outsides up. It is still very difficult. Guys, still the Cavaliers finals week. People will get comments that, hey, bring your outsides up. Now, what I equate this to actually is just relaxing the outside mallet. Is that you aren't stiff enough with the outside mallet. You still want everything relaxed on the inside, and the only thing holding it down is that anchor. And the only reason the mallet's not flying out of your hand is because it's being stopped by your thumb. It's not being pressed by your thumb. But if you stiffen up the outside mallets a little bit and keep that grip nice and strong on the outside, your outsides are going to stay up pretty well.
All right.
So it's almost like a mental reminder.
Yeah, so home base, no matter what there, basically, kind of.
Yeah, if you're thinking home base, your outsides will do a better job of staying up. Okay. You will break home base though. Your insides will. You just don't want this.
Right.
You don't want to throw them down, like lower them, because then you're really gonna hurt yourself.
Gotcha.
Basically.
Yeah, basically I heard the outside mallets when you're doing runs should be flat. So that's wrong.
Oh, like all of it, like it should look like this?
Like where the mallets are like parallel to the key, where the 1 and 4 mallet are parallel to
like this.
Yeah. So never mind. I'll shut up. That's wrong.
Well, it's not wrong, because then you have like some California groups where that is the case. And I'll just be honest, I have never learned how they do that.
Okay.
They're great at it, and they're fantastic players. I really don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it without hurting themselves, because they don't hurt themselves. Personally, I would really hurt myself.
Got it.
I'd be so tense trying to, I don't know, this would wiggle around. I feel like I'd also kind of stuff myself on the keys. Like I had to move.
Yep. Okay. You just sold me. Got it.
That's kind of why we kept him up always, was just to stay out of the way.
Yep.
Because that hurts, guys. When you like stuff a mallet, that doesn't feel very good at all. Cool. Yeah, great. Let's see. So when I'm practicing on the floor, guys, when I was starting out and I was like in indoor and I was your age, Okay, our school did not own a marimba, yet I still made marimba at uh, at the indoor group I played at. I learned all the notes at the piano, okay? And I told myself I was going to be the most solid technical player there. And that if I could just know the notes in real time, I could be playing the right notes. It was like, so, I was like, I'm going to make marimba. I don't know what came over me, but I was like, guys, I'm gonna make marimba. I don't own one. I can never play on one. Literally, like season ended, I didn't touch a marimba until auditions. Okay, but I had mentally prepared for that. And back then, there was no like what I see here, like a cutout of a marimba with keys. And no, I was on the floor, and what I did was I made sure I knew a couple of things that would help get me a marimba spot were a clean home bass, some chops, and the ability to play weird things and be flexible about it. So I'd play an exercise in the packet and I'd be like, okay, so what if I did this all backwards? Okay, what if I changed the permutation? And I just would like stump myself. I'd be like, all right, let's make this really weird. And I always wanted to come out of the practice room being like, gosh, I'm terrible. Ugh, I do not know how to play an instrument.
Yeah, one of the things I always tell we've said before is that a great player always finds their ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, you're never going to be great if you're always comfortable. But if you get used to making yourself uncomfortable, when you find your limitations every day, that's why you become great. You know, so I love that idea.
Yeah, and to be comfortable with that, knowing that, okay, there was great progress today. I now have something new that I have to attack for tomorrow. Giving yourself purpose for the next day. That was super important. So what I did when I probably did about 2 hours on the floor every day. And I just played the music. I did not throw on a metronome. I detached. My brain would detach from what I was doing if I threw on a metronome. Again, I grew up with violin. I grew up with music in the house. Metronome, violinist, not very good with a metronome. Let's face it, your orchestra players might not be the best solid with time because they don't grow up with a metronome. Percussionists do. So what I did was I played to music. And I did about 2 hours every day. Lunchtime at school, I just go into the hallway, throw on some music. I had my mirror that I'd bring to school. I was like that kid. I'd like set up in some hallway and just like play on the floor. And then like after dinner, I'd do another hour. Okay? So the things that I would work on are exactly the three types of motions. I'd work on block chords, and then I'd work on 13-24, which is 1 and 3, and 2 and 4 hitting together. So I'd do this. And I'd do it all in piston stroke. Very rarely would I stray from piston stroke. Now, have we ever gone over piston stroke?
Oh yeah, since day one.
Great. So reiteration, piston starts up, ends up. It goes down very quickly, comes right back to the same spot. You want to act like somebody's taking like a high-speed camera picture of you, like a burst shot, and you did a stroke in the middle of it, but every picture looks like this. Like your stroke was so fast, the burst didn't catch it. Okay? So I'd work on this. Okay? Very slow. And then I do my 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'd work on that. Very slow. Guys, for my entire hour at school, I probably played at like tempo 30. Okay, like quarter note 30. with music going on, but I play like whole notes. So if your tempo is, I play bang, bang, bang. If the music was doing that, I'd just be, and I just break down everything about my hand. Is the rotation good? Am I getting back up to the home base? How still is my other mallet? Do I need to support it for a second? Get this rotation under control. So an hour was very slow. And then after dinner at night is usually when I pull out like the exercise book and I'd make sure that I'm okay with the exercises like on the floor. And back then it was like blocks and broccoli and like another weird one. Mind you, this is 2012. So it's not too advanced at this point. And then I would just chop out. Like the last 30 minutes, I would just do all insides. And I would just gain endurance. And I'd do like the same songs for my endurance. Because I wanted to see how much progress I was making.
Yeah.
So if like I could only make it 30 seconds, and then the next day I made it 35 seconds, I knew I was getting some sort of progress by like the end of 2 months. I'm playing the whole thing down. I'm like, okay, I couldn't do that 2 months ago. So that was kind of my building block, was music, playing on the floor, and I, again, did not have a keyboard. My mom's a piano teacher, so I had a piano at home. And that's where I cannot play piano by any means. It's like, okay, I have 4 mallets, so I'd go to the keyboard like this, and I'd be like, okay, that's where okay, all right, that's how it's gotta be. So nothing like, you don't have to be a virtuoso. It's just getting some feedback, hearing-wise, and then
Actually,
just
a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
So I know I don't want to have to. I don't want you to have to manipulate your camera or anything like that. But whenever I have them talking about doing floor exercises, I've taught them like sitting down, back against the wall, cross the legs so that, because like if you try to crisscross applesauce, your knees are in the way and you have to put your arms out. Is that how you pretty much approach that?
Yes. Yeah. So when I use, okay, another quick story. Used to be like, I was going to be a professional skier. That was like my path on the junior Olympic team. I ended up breaking my leg. So I have a pretty bad leg. That's another reason why I didn't ever go for drumline. I was like, okay, well, I had like 3 surgeries on it. This is all in high school.
Wow.
So I went for front ensemble. I was like, okay, I can stand there and play. Cool with that. I can manage that. So yeah, I have a really hard time bending my leg. Like I can't like cross my leg. So I keep them straight. So basically what I'll do is just like, I keep them straight and I usually play like this. Back against the wall. And I usually just play like this.
Yeah. So when you guys are doing this, like, I don't crisscross applesauce because then your knees are making you manipulate your technique.
Yeah, and then there are some people that I've met that do this. They'll like cross and then like play. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
They'll like go like this. I think that's like really hard on your back.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that for a long time. So I just try and be as relaxed as possible against the wall. Put a pillow back there. Get comfy.
I guess technically you could be on your bed too and do the same thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the whole thing is that the keyboard does not give you a rebound, right? When we hit the keyboard, it's like plunk, right? It's not like a drum where it's like bang, comes right back up. So we have to create that rebound. Playing on the floor is great because, again, the mallet's not going to give you anything. A pillow, I've seen people do that. I personally don't really like the pillow, but I've seen great players do that, and it works for them. So whatever gets you playing, don't be stuck with, it's not a full moon, temperature isn't 76 degrees. Don't ever be stuck like that. You should be like, all right, it's lunchtime. I got 5 minutes. Oh, I've got some mallets. Okay, I could work on like block chords for a minute. And there you practice for 5 minutes. The best players take advantage of every opportunity. They just don't want to stop because they have goals or striving to get better. The incremental practice is what gets you better. Cool.
Yeah. And we got about 5
In
minutes.
all that, yeah. Okay. Yeah, in all aspects of playing, guys, the incremental practice is just so key. If you do 30 minutes every day, that will absolutely beat take a day off, do an hour, take another day off, do an hour and a half, take another day off, do 45 minutes. You may kind of gain more time that way, but it's the consistent every single day that actually gives you that slope up. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, can't stress that enough. I didn't take a day off. I was just
I
so driven.
Yeah, I felt like I got so in tune in my hands when I was auditioning for drum corps that I felt like when I took a day off, it felt like I took 2 days off. Like I could really feel how sluggish my hands got. So, I mean,
Yeah.
even when I had a job, if I got home at 1 a.m. and I didn't get my hour in that day, I'd go into the garage. I know I'm an extreme, but I was getting ready for a world-class audition as a 17-year-old, you know?
Oh yeah.
So, and I was really driven to make that core. So I totally agree about the consistency. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when I was like going to age out at Music City Mystique and coming back and knowing that I was going to be center, there were like expectations to that of myself. Even though I had aged out at Cavaliers as drum sergeant and I'd already come back as a vet, I knew very well that they could cut me at the audition. And there like no one was safe. So I pushed myself extremely hard with a day job. I was working at Innovative Percussion. That
Oh,
was
wow.
my day job.
Cool.
So I was making mallets during the day, and like on my breaks, I'd be practicing.
Man,
And
maybe one day we can do a mallet wrapping clinic.
oh, totally. Would
Oh,
love
yeah.
it.
That'd be super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, I was like head rapper at Innovative. We can get all into that,
Wow.
but
Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah, I love the mallet making process. Also helped me kind of, uh, definitely helped me on the keyboard. So, uh, yeah, at the end, like guys, my age out at Mystique, I'll eventually get to show you this show, but we had a 16-year-old on the line. He made marimba. He was from Alabama, like from a nowhere program, and he could play green scales at 220. He outplayed me, like stood in my spot, played green by himself at 220. I was just like, man, you could just stay there. You can have the spot. But he came into the audition knowing, okay, this is Music City Mystique. This is the expectation. I need to rise to this. I need to be able to achieve this by the time I get there. Like the tempo marking said 210. He's like, I'm sure they'll go faster in the audition. So I need to make sure I can play this at 220. Sure enough, we did. And it was like singling out kind of vets to kind of show a discipline on vets like, oh, you guys need to be doing better. And this kid, little Grayton, like this tall. You'll see me, I'm not a very tall person. He's even shorter. Guys, he's in high school. He just made it happen. Now he's playing marimba at BD, played at Bluecoats. It's like 18 now.
Well,
But
we're getting towards the end of the class here. Do you think, I'm sure maybe we can do a part two
oh, sure.
at some point. Maybe I can get with you later and maybe get your floor routine that you kind of did, growing up, or we
Definitely.
can look at our warm-up packet and say, isolate these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exercises on the floor without changing notes or whatever. But
Definitely. Yeah.
I think the thing, I mean, obviously we're going to have a continuation on this, and we're so glad to have you on our staff, and we're looking forward to meeting you even more. And I loved hearing about your background. I think what's
Sure.
interesting before we go, guys, is it's so interesting to hear the obstacles he had to overcome we're so lucky in Texas that we take a lot of things for granted. I might take you for granted, you might take me for granted, or instruments or things like that. And what's interesting, when I marched drum corps and I ran into students like that didn't come from Texas, it's so interesting because they don't take it for granted. They were super hungry. It's like if you never had good food before and you're like, oh man, what is this? Good. And you start eating it up. Where we're like, well, I've had better, I'm not hungry because I've had that food, So it's one of the last things he was kind of saying here was like, even though you're a vet or whatever, you got to stay hungry, and that's hard to do if you get cynical or you get busy. We got to stay hungry. So we're a little bit over time here, so we're gonna have to wrap it up. But let's go ahead and unmute and let's give Mr. Figueroa a welcome and thank you again for today.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to be working with you guys. I'm really looking forward to it. And you guys have it so great in Texas. You have no idea. So I am so happy to be out here and being able to work with groups. It's really awesome. So looking forward to it.
Awesome, guys. Well, have a great day, everybody. What's up?
What's going on?
Yeah, I'm just happy that we were able to make that happen. He's going to be starting with us on Thursday next week with the front ensemble. It's just so like one of the big missing pieces was finding I've never had like a drum corps WGI front ensemble tech ever. And it's like, just when I got two, we have a pandemic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at least, we're getting started in some facet next week. So, I mean, who knows? Watch us show up, get everything ready, and then it rains and we have to go home, but whatever.
I mean, what was it? Hurricane Sally. Apparently that's like happening. I didn't know about that till like last night.
Yeah. I mean, man, Louisiana gets it so bad, man.
Yeah. So hopefully things don't turn out bad next week.
Yep. I hope. It's been saying it's going to rain all day, and then it just rains for like an hour and some random part in the afternoon. So I'm hoping we get lucky.
Cool.
So.
All right, man. I'll catch you later.
See ya.